So I think we can start some introduction. So first of all, I'm Cinzia Perrino, and this is a webinar organized by the Italian Society of Cardiology, the working group of cellular and molecular biology of the heart of the Italian Society of Cardiology. And one of the issues that our working group has, one of the difficulties that we are facing all the time, is that basically in a society that is mostly made of clinicians, explaining the role and the importance of preclinical studies is sometimes very difficult. So sometimes the people that are just involved in clinical research find these studies far from clinical practice. I mean, working with preclinical models, cell systems, and everything. So that's why I proposed this webinar, and I proposed Peter as a speaker, because he has a very, very specific scientific profile. So Professor Ferdinand is like Vice Rector for Science and Innovation of Semmelweis University in Budapest, Hungary. And in 2014 and 2017, he has been cited in database of the highly cited researchers. So he's one of the world's most influential scientists, and this is shown by his scientific production. He's authored more than 270 papers. He has more than 14,000 citations, and then H index of 61. I just checked in Scopus to be correct. He's an MD and PhD. He did a postdoctoral training in pharmacology. But the very interesting thing in his CV is that he also did a master in business administration, and he got a diploma in finance and quality management. And in the early years of 2000, he founded a group that is called Pharma Hungary Group. Is made of research and development societies. And since its foundation, this group has analyzed more than 250 products, either drugs or medical devices, to propose into clinical practice. So based on this introduction, Peter is an example of not only an excellent scientist, but also a businessman and someone that can move preclinical results to really transform them into blockbuster therapies. So based on this introduction, Peter, how do you transform preclinical data into clinical products?
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I tried to share my screen, and I just want to announce that my talk is purely non-scientific. So I will talk about the role of academic research and the startup companies in drug development and the pharma biotech industry, and maybe to give you a kind of a motivation talk that on top of science, you could start your own company and do some innovations. So I hope that the slide will also move. Yes, it moved. Yes. Can you see my slides and you can hear me well?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, and I won't go beyond the 30 minutes, so don't worry. So, first of all, everybody heard about innovation, but and there are thousands of definitions, but what is the most interesting for us is this is from an idea or discovery to the market. So this is a road to the market, because I think that every scientist has a vision that his science will somehow help mankind and save lives. But for that, definitely we need to reach the market. Otherwise, whether or not even if we do a very great science, but we don't reach the market with our inventions, with our discoveries, we will never save lives. And these are just some quotes from Claude Bernard and Nikola Tesla on what scientists might feel when they discover something. So, to move on, we know that the healthcare pharmaceutical industry is a leading one globally, especially in terms of the economic value addition. So unless there is a world war, the pharma industry creates the more business value in the globe. And on the top, it's very resistant to financial crisis as well. And the reason is that probably, at least this is a funny quote from Sir William Osler, the founder of Johns Hopkins, that they said that the desire to take medicine is perhaps the greatest feature which distinguishes man from animals. Although I don't think it's quite true, because the cats of my kids also like to take herbal medicine from the ground. But definitely health is absolute priority for humans, and probably that's why we do everything for our health. We could see it in the COVID-19 pandemic that the democratic free world immediately given up many things like freedom to move, freedom to go out, just to make sure that we stay healthy. So if you want to get into this pharmaceutical industry and want to do innovation, first of all, I will show you examples that in the 21st century, there's absolutely no limits of innovations in medicinal products. So if you see what can be a medicine, it's a very easy answer, because anything can be developed in these days to medicine. Because you know, the traditional drugs are small molecules, but the biologics, the macromolecules, are coming like antibodies, proteins, and so on. And especially the advanced therapy medicinal product, which is a 209 EC directive definition, which defines the gene therapy medicinal product and cell and tissue therapy medicinal products as part of this advanced therapy medicinal products, ATMP. I think that all of us have heard about it. And on the top, all these can be combined with medical devices. Probably the most known in cardiac society is the drug-eluting stent, which is a combination of a device with a drug. But probably less people heard about, for example, this DNA walking spider, for example, which is already 10 years old innovation. So basically everything can be a medicine, and there is absolutely no limits of innovation. So I will give you one example of a drug which has been approved in 2018 by FDA, and this is the first digital drug device combination on the market. So which contains a normal tablet with an old drug, aripiprazole, which is an antipsychotic drug. But on the pill there is a sensor, and when the patient takes these pills, the sensor is activated by the stomach acid, and then it transmits signals. And there is also a variable sensor on the skin or on the wrist of the patient, and this amplifies the signal. And there is also a mobile application where the doctor and the patient is able to follow actually the compliance of the patient to take this drug. So actually this medicinal product consists of a chemical molecule, one medical device, another medical device, and also software, and the software can be also a medical device, and these four entities together takes up the medicine. Or, you know, the first small interfering RNA patisiran is on the market. By this technology, now we can cure inherited diseases as well. Now, genetically inherited monogenic diseases we can even cure. And this is a first example, this transthyretin-mediated amyloidosis, which the pathology is that there is an overproduction of this amyloid protein, and it deposits in the peripheral nerve, heart, and other organs. And the therapy is to silence this gene. So basically the drug is a small double-stranded RNA, which is taken up by the cells, and this silencing single-stranded RNA will bind to the mRNA of this amyloid protein code. and in this RNA new silencing complex, they will be degraded. So these are the new drugs which are coming, and we see that they are coming because in 1 year after, givosiran has been also introduced to treat inherited hepatic porphyria, and lumasiran to treat hyperoxaluria. And on top of these, inclisiran, as you might know, this is also an ATMP, a small silencing, small interfering RNA, which treats hypercholesterolemia, which is a wide, not a rare disease. So this is really a breakthrough. It actually inhibits the expression of PCSK9. SARS-CoV, I don't want to go over it, but as probably all of us know, that especially in the SARS-CoV vaccine development, there are several technologies very rapidly evolved to reach the market, and new vaccines have been developed. And on top of the well-known weakened virus and inactivated virus, the viral vector vaccines has been implemented, and the same, all these vaccines do the same. So they put the coronavirus spike peptide on the antigen presenting cells, and whether it goes, the gene is implemented by a viral vector or nucleic acid vaccines like DNA or RNA vaccine, the end result is the coronavirus spike peptide here, which initiates an immune response. And now also protein-based and virus-like particle-based vaccines are coming. And of course, these protein-based vaccines we have now as well. So this was the one example what everybody have seen. Well, for example, this is one of my favorite. In this technology, I don't know whether it's get into the clinic, but there are a lot of technology now which uses magnetic nanoparticles, and this is a very interesting medicinal product. So there's a magnetic nanoparticle here, and on the surface there is nerve growth factor and some other adhesion proteins. And if a nerve is damaged, what you can do is to inject this nerve growth factor with a magnetic nanoparticle to the damaged area. And as all of us know, these large nerves regenerate very slow and they don't know where to grow. So basically, by this technology, an application of magnetic field, you can direct the nerve where to grow to renerve the muscle, and also the nerve growth factor speeds up the growth. And in preclinical animal models, it has been already proven that it is effective and safe. And for example, this nanoparticle technology, magnetic nanoparticle technology, is rapidly increasing in use for anti-tumor treatment, because you don't want systematic treatment. So you give the magnetic nanoparticles, which are loaded with several anti-tumor agents, which are can be highly cytotoxic. And by application of magnetic field on the site of a tumor, you can direct this magnetic field very focusedly. You can induce the release of the drug only at the site of the tumor. So basically, there is absolutely no limits of drug development so far, and everybody can be part of it, because now drugs are very multidisciplinary, from information technology to traditional chemistry. Of course, the drug development process usually is long. It usually takes about 1 decade. It's very expensive now to put one drug successfully to the market. The average cost is roughly $1.5 billion. And the real cost for one successful drug is much higher because the process is extremely risky. The success rate is very low, and the patent protection takes only 20 plus 5 years. So there is a race with time during the development, because you want to put the drug to the market as soon as possible, so you will still have time to earn money and finance your company. To decrease this risk of development, which is extremely high in the drug development industry, drug development became a cooperative social effort, and everybody can be part of this innovation process. These are the major players of the pharma industry. I used to tell it to third-year pharmacology, the pharmacology course, to medical students as well, that with an MD diploma, they can be part of all of these players, not only academic institutions or hospitals, but also can start their own innovative company or be part of a large company or investors. It's very important to invest into these new technologies, which are very risky, and also contract research organization, government regulatory body, and insurance companies, and so on, which I don't want to detail here because the cardiology society members know about it. So as a result, in the last couple of decades, the speed of development of medicinal product significantly increased due to the innovations in science, technology, and also processes, also business and administrative processes, not only technologies. That's also very important. So if you see that the time from discovery of a virus to the first approved treatment, whether it's a drug or a vaccine, you see that an influenza took more than 3 decades to develop any treatment. In hepatitis B, it was more than 2 decades. At HIV, it was already less than 5 years. And in SARS-CoV-2, it was in fact less than a year to go to the first approved treatment. So, and where these wonderful innovations come from? One may think that this comes from these multinational top 20 big pharma companies in the world, but in fact is not the case. As you see here, that the source of the innovation accounts for more than 2/3 comes from small biotech company and academia especially. And only afterwards, these are taken up by large pharma companies. So this is how the ideal ecosystem of the drug industry, pharmaceutical and medical technology industry look like. So this is the innovation process here, and in green, these are the sources of the money, and here you see the major players. So the academic institutions are very major players, but basically in basic research. The big pharma mostly contribute to the industrial development and product to the market, and together with the small companies, which are very variable, together with the academic institutions, they can progress the certain project to a certain stage where the big pharma and a couple of investors can also see these projects and think it's worth to invest in. And another very important thing to run these small companies, that even if you want to finance your research, you can get to totally different funding sources for research, while in the academia is only public and private funding for specifically for academia, but with the help of these spin-off companies, you can get a whole lot of other sources of development. Unfortunately, in the European Union, in many of the countries, there are very few of these small companies, and also the investment, let's say, climate is very less developed compared to US or especially now in the rapidly developing Asian countries. So what we have to work on is to really boost and motivate people in our academic institutions to start a company. Of course, it's very difficult to do this from the academia, because once you have a company, you have to deal with your genius professor who invents something, but has a genius professor behavior, including forgetting times and quality control and so on. And you need a businessman with the heart, very strict quality control and project goals, have to run science under ISO or good laboratory practice, GCP protocols. And it's very hard, very rare that these qualities is in one person. So it's very difficult to do this. Of course, in innovation, but it's very important that you need to have a deep knowledge of the state of the art. You have to be persistent and open to novel things. So if you just follow the dogmas of scientific things and tons of scientific publications, it's very difficult to invent something new. So before going to the other small part of my talk, this is an interim summary, is that the role of the academic sector, universities in pharma industry is very important because they contribute to the discovery research, but it's very important that without these small spin-off companies, it's very difficult to reach a certain stage where investors come. So they develop basic and novel technologies. And what is very important, that at this stage, protecting the intellectual property and transfer the technology to industry, at least to a spin-off company, is very necessary. And the role of these spin-off companies, and the spin-off means that it rolls off from the university, so it has tight connection to the university. Ideally, it is funded by a professor of the university, so they can protect and utilize the intellectual property and progress to early stage projects to be visible for investors and the big pharmaceutical companies. And of course, from these small companies can grow to a mid-size or big pharma company, and thereby we can help the economy of our own countries by this way. So, and then the next some slides show that why it's so important to protect the intellectual property, and first we need to protect it and then to publish things. So, because if you do not protect your intellectual property, you will never reach the market, because patenting basically keeps you a privilege to use your technology, and therefore the investors can put money into this project because it's safe, because you have time to develop it. Protecting the knowledge, protecting the intellectual property, the cheapest way is to keep secrets, so you don't tell your, on the pub what is your new discovery. And then it's very important to think of patenting. So there are several criteria of patenting, so it's better to go to the innovation office of your university or find a professional patent lawyers to see the criteria how your technology can be patented, because it needs novelty, innovative step, and also industrial applicability. And of course, if you patent, you can be rich as well, future benefit to you and your institution, and plus you can save lives as well. And then publish is very important. Just some example of Hungary, that, for example, we are very proud that we are very efficient in publishing in a certain research money. But of course, it's very good if you see it from a science point of view. But if you look at the patents, the number of patents per capita, here you see that Hungary is pretty much backwards. So that means that while we publish a lot, we do not patent a lot. And I think that Italy is also not a leading one in this case. An example of an old invention at Semmelweis University. You might know the drug Deprenil, which is a MAO-B, monoamino oxidase B inhibitor. Is widely used over 60 countries for treating Alzheimer's disease and depression. And Professor Knoll, who was also head of pharmacology at Semmelweis University, he discovered and pushed it up to the market with a small Japanese company. And of course, he became very wealthy and his group out of this, but the university at that time was not very keen on doing such patenting and intellectual property protection. So the university didn't get too much benefit out of it. However, with the same technology, the same Deprenil, many years later, a couple of years ago, we repositioned to oncology indications and then patented together with the university. And then the original company started to invest to this project and help to finance our research there. So this is now a good example in the last couple of years. So as a last remarks, so now it's your turn. So as Claude Bernard said, the joy of discovery is certainly the liveliest that the mind of a man can ever feel. So it's very important to start up. In fact, Hungary is a pretty good place to start up. It's a tax paradise for R&D companies. There's very strong increase in government spending and a rapidly increasing employment in R&D, in the R&D sector in the last couple of years. So we cannot complain. And so the take-home message for scientists interested in innovations, it's very important to do very honest and unbiased science, and don't be afraid of negative data, even if all the literature says something else, because that's when you discover something. And of course, you must believe in your own data and be persistent and sell your science. And the quality control system is absolutely essential. The reason I studied business as well and industry to realize how important is quality control, because otherwise the industry wouldn't buy your science if it's not done accordingly. So, research not carried out under quality control and not documented accordingly is considered not done by the industry. And the take-home message for innovators, it's very important that there are no limits of drug and medical device development in the 21st century. So it's so multidisciplinary that even with a new software in your garage company, you can be part of it. It's very important to confidentiality and think of patents and only then publish. And the collaboration with industry in the preclinical stage is increasingly important, because you can access to novel technologies, but even large grants couldn't afford. And the publications will be higher influence and also will bring higher volume of citations if it's industrial project. It helps financing the lab, and we can learn quality control from industry. So think being an entrepreneur and start up your own startup. Just my own experience, I've been listed among the most influential, highly cited researchers now in 4 times, 2014, 17, 20, and 21. And I just calculated that the industry-driven project really boosted my publications and citations. More than 1/3 of them were driven by the industry. And of course, we have 5 patent families, but we are hoping to develop up to the market. So thank you very much for your attention. And I think I finished in time.
Yes, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. That was perfect. I have several questions. There should be Rossella here.
Yes,
I'm here, and
he
also several questions for Peter, and So one question is that a recent trend is to develop therapies for orphan disease with the small patients population. And this path can be very, very rapid and very, very convenient for a pharmaceutical company because of less expensive trial. But do you think that this can represent also a fragility for this trial, for the trial of this new drug for orphan disease, such as pulmonary hypertension? What do you think?
Yeah, pulmonary hypertension, I don't know if it's a rare disease, if it's considered to be a rare disease, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yes. Pulmonary arterial disease is a rare disease, is an orphan disease.
It's orphan disease, yes, that's new for me, so I've learned something now. So I think that there's a definition, depends if the European Medicines Agency or FDA considers a certain disease a rare disease, that's then the development track is faster for sure, but and there is increasing number of drugs put to the market on the orphan disease. I have some slides on that as well, but I cannot now just find them now, but so I know it's increasing number, but the clinical trials are very small, and also then the number of patients to treat is also very small. So these are business-wise for companies are only feasible if government and the insurance system will pay for these treatments. So it's very highly depending on the insurance system. So I don't think that in the near future these rare disease trials will dominate clinical trials. And the other thing is that for the hospitals, you need to have a very up-to-date database of the patients and to involve these rare disease patients.
Thank you. I have another last question. So recently the definition of drug has evolved to include cellular therapies and also microRNA and gene therapy. So in terms of interaction between industry and academic, which is always a little bit difficult, do you think that this new drug can promote novel type of academic and industry collaboration?
I think that it is again kind of increasing, but I think that the big pharma companies will, in the early stage of development, will never really collaborate with academia. They pretty much like collaborating with small companies, small biotech companies. So if the best way is that if you have a discovery, you found your own company and start to look for investment and start to look for connections to large pharmaceutical companies. So that's directly university is not a good partner for the industry, not a good direct partner from the industry, because the rectors are changing very slow, no quality control, very slow in creating any new contracts and so on. We all know this.
Thank you, Peter. I don't know if we have any other questions from the audience. If not, I'll start with some that I put down. So first of all, when you have to decide which drug or device to push toward the market, what's the criteria? For example, do you think of the disease, the mechanism? What is that gets the priority when you have to decide which one? Because of course you'll have many candidates, and since there is a problem with time, and you have to choose. I imagine that you have to choose some.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, you asked me as a vice rector for innovation at the university or as a company head. So I can answer both. As an innovation director, since the university discoveries are extremely early stage, we do not know which will be create a blockbuster drug. So the strategy is to patent everything which is feasible. Actually, the number of patents very much increased at Semmelweis University in the last 2 years, and then try to find a partner to further develop it as soon as possible. And the reason of it, once the Harvard University Tech Transfer Office director told to me that the royalty income, so this income coming from the patents, at Harvard, 99% of this income comes from less than 1% of the patents. And they don't know at the time of the patenting that which will be this 1%. So the high volume of patents and the very rapid, let's say, out-licensing of the patents is the strategy. As a small company head, we push what we believe in. That's it. And where we have a group to push it. Investors go not only for technology, because there are thousands of good technologies and novel technologies. Everybody thinks that his or her technology is the one technology, but there are tons of them. So what the investors look for is the team. So they need to believe that the team behind this project is able to really push and reach business goals. So, for example, to have a further development step within a year, because then they collect some more money and so on. So that's it, nothing else. So it's a very subjective thing.
Okay. So, and also, I think that the low number of patents that we have in Italy, just like in Hungary, is basically because our careers are still divided. I mean, finding a person that has a business, even training, is not so common. So basically, we don't think very much. And also there is the pressure of time, because you need to be very fast. And as you know, I don't know in Hungary, but for instance, in Italy, basic research is much slower, for instance, compared to the States or other countries in Europe. So of course, if you're fighting with time, it's very difficult to compete with patents.
Yes, but the thing is that we don't know. The problem is the knowledge of the scientists. Usually, patenting doesn't really need extra time. It needs extra resources, but it doesn't slow down the publication, because it's just you have to think while writing up a paper. You have to think whether this is good for a patent or not, and you have to go in time to the tech transfer office and ask if it's patentable and it's worth to patent. And you file the patent on Monday and you can submit the paper on Tuesday. That's not a problem.
And one other question, with all the COVID vaccines, people have been talking about vaccines for cardiovascular diseases.
Yes.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything on that you know about?
Yes, atherosclerosis for a long run, it's all what involves the immune system could be vaccinated, probably, but definitely this RNA technology will definitely, whether it's vaccine or small RNA molecules, these RNA therapeutics will come, and they're rapidly coming. So that's what I don't think, probably vaccination, but RNA therapeutics definitely. So you can easily overexpress or repress a gene by this technology. So, and it's here already. So, and it's not even new, because this RNA, the mRNA technology was here more than 10 years. Or BioNTech, actually the major inventor was a Hungarian scientist from my...
It's the label vaccine that is changed.
Yes, the label vaccine.
Just the label.
The label vaccine was new, so.
Yeah. I don't know if Rossella has anything else.
Please, I'm sorry. Can I ask you?
Sure.
To Peter, whom I thank for his presentation. I'm just curious, what do you think is the strength of Japan? Because if I remember correctly, Japan has the highest rate of patenting, right?
Japan, yes, Asia in general is very good in this field because they just think of it, and the industry is pretty much penetrated to the academia in Japan. Actually, yeah, Japan and South Korea and Israel is leading. Actually,
yeah, but what do you think is the reason for this such a prolific activity in patenting?
Because they teach it at the university, so even the students know about it, and the other thing is that the industry is very much penetrated already in the academia. So that's the reason. So
not Italy or Hungary, maybe, no?
Yeah, what now happened in Hungary last year that maybe some universities to speed up this had the possibility to move to private university based on foundation, financing, and Semmelweis University as of last August became also a private university, and our board of trustees, for example, one of the local original research pharma company is on the board actually of the university. So that's how we try to boost this up. So Gedeon Richter, which is leading in some areas, and they put Caripraz into the market a couple of years ago for antipsychotic drug. They are on the board of the university now, so that's how we try to boost this up, and we are planning to build a science park in 3 years now. We got resources from the government for that, and we implement a lot of innovation courses at the university, so students know what is patenting and what innovation about. So that this is how, at least in Hungary, the government tries to boost up this with the help of the universities.
Okay, thank you very much.
And what about enrollment in clinical trials? Is it easier in the East, or is it
in the European Union, the same regulation applies to every country. Exactly the same regulation applies. And especially from this February, there is a central registration of clinical trials. So there's very little advantage of different countries within the European Union. So the companies go for scientific excellence actually and patient enrollment. So Hungary is pretty much leading in this, at least in cardiovascular. I don't know about the other areas, but in cardiovascular, usually Hungary is involved. Hungarian sites are involved in most of the large trials, and they are very good in patient enrollment. But it's basically depend on the PIs, on the principal investigators. So it's very personal. Otherwise, countries doesn't have any advantage. The regulation is exactly the same.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see if we have any other questions. Someone is speaking, or maybe they're afraid of asking questions. This is a very tricky topic for cardiologists, at least in Italy.
Yes.
I ask one thing to Peter.
Yeah.
Peter, what do you think? Patenting is necessary also for very basic research that is not doesn't program to have a drug, just a very basic research.
Yeah,
new mechanism.
Yes, the new mechanism. This is not patentable. So patent has 3 criteria: novelty, innovative steps, and industrial applicability. So and these 3 should apply together. If one doesn't apply, then it's not a patentable. So if you, for example, if somebody invents a starship which can reach the Sirius B in 1 day, it cannot be patented because although it, it's new, it has an inventive step, but it's not applicable now. So you have to show that it's applicable also in certain models, So in very basic research, not, but it's...
So there is still room for romantic researchers.
Yes, of course, it's important, and because this is the basis of discovery. But you have to really discuss with the innovation of tech transfer office of your university, because they might help you to realize if it has some industrial value, and it's just worth to see. Maybe in 100 papers, maybe there are only 2, 3, 4 papers out of it, but it's definitely it's good to at least to filter these. So what we do in the Semmelweis University, that we give incentives. So for example, a free language editing. If they submit the papers for free language editing, and in the meantime, we also search if it's good for patenting as well. And otherwise, if we would say that, okay, give it us first, research for patenting, they wouldn't care. But if you do some popular additional service, then they send it to us. So now we have about 300 papers per year to be checked for patenting. Out of the, I don't know, almost 2,000, so not that much, but still we start somewhere.
But on the other side, there is the problem that the government doesn't support the basic research so much because they...
It depends on the
government.
Yeah.
They want the application in many programs, many research programs, even in the European program, they ask always for the application.
Yeah. So you need to align with some small companies.
There are few money for basic research.
Yeah, it depends.
That's a big problem because the real innovation came from the basic, I think.
Yeah, but it's too early, so you need to develop for a certain stage until it's visible for really an innovation something. So yeah, I'm sorry, I have maybe 2 more minutes because at
no, I think we can wrap up, Peter. Thank you. We are perfectly on time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was an excellent overview of what are the possibilities, what we should do. It's a totally different point of view, I believe. It's something that not everyone has in their own minds. We usually don't think about this even when we design our research studies. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you indeed, and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. Bye-bye.
Domani alle 6, vero? Ci sei, no?
Sì.
Ciao, Rossini.
Benissimo.
Sì, ci vediamo domani alla riunione dei gruppi, dei coordinatori.
Esatto. Okay.
Arrivederci a tutti.
Arrivederci.